And front gear did not. Okay.
Inventory full. Inventory full. Inventory full.
Remove that. That's kind of unfortunate, so I need to undock and take it back up a little bit here. And I need to manually go to the landing hinges and reverse, just so that way I can actually place this proper. So go 5. Piston forward. Put the wheel on there. Okay, now that should function as intended. And should be able to come up here and this battery.
Inventory full.
Get rid of. And this battery.
Inventory full.
Get rid of. And then I want to grab another event controller. I'm going to tuck one in here. And tuck one in here. So now, should be able to go here and go to event controllers. And we'll do this as altitude EC. And then this one will be thrust, or no, we'll do dampeners EC. That should be fine. So the altitude EC, we want to set this to be event altitude condition equal or less than an altitude of 20. Or well, okay, I don't know if that'll work for mountains. Well, we'll leave it at 20 anyway. We'll get all that figured out in testing. And then dampeners, we'll do thrust percent equal or less than a thrust of 0. And we want that for all of the thrusters, mainly the downwards, but you never know if you're going to be upside down or something like that and you don't want it to accidentally trigger. So we'll just do all of them. Okay, and we want to set this block off. We want the altitude on. We want to sort by ECs. So pilot in seat event controller. If a pilot is in seat, we want the true action. No, we want the false action to be to turn on the dampener. No, wait, this is completely wrong. Toggle block off. Yeah. So when the pilot leaves, yeah, we have everything alternate when the pilot leaves. So we'll do the altitude, can turn on the dampeners. So select actions. If we're true, we want the dampeners EC to be turned on. And if we're false, we want the dampeners EC to be turned off. And then dampeners, if we're true, we want the pilot in seat to be turned on. And if we're false, we want that to... No, we want that to still be turned on, right? Because if we hop into the seat, we don't immediately want to turn off the dampener event controller, right? Because we want to be able to take off. So we want the tab 6. When it's false, we want to turn off the pilot EC. Right? Because once we take off, then and we're outside of range of landing, we want to turn that off. Because that means, like, if we're outside of that, we are in the seat. And everything should be turned on. And if we're outside of range of landing, we don't want our ship to turn off. So we want to turn that off. Then. So dampeners, that's just if the thrust is turned off. Altitude. And the actions for the altitude is the dampeners on and off. And we also want to do the hinges. So if we're true, we want to reverse. And if we're false, we want to reverse. And I have to do these on separate tabs because I can't do that in the same action. Okay. So then pilot and seat select actions. We can remove that from here. So 1 and 2 can just be blank. 3 is our gyros, our thrusters, and we don't need anything else because we want to keep the batteries running and we want to keep the antenna running so we can find the ship. And the antenna, we want to have that on unless it's docked. So we want to do the dock connector EC, set actions. And if we're not docked, 8, 9, 9's empty. If we're not docked, we want the Arcadia to be turned on. And if we are docked, we want it to be turned off. Right? Everything else for like being connected, we want to keep that all the same because we want the same landing procedures when we're connected. Because we want to actually charge all of our stuff at that point. But if we're just landing on the surface of a planet, we want to keep everything on aside from the thrusters and the gyros. Which actually, rather than turning the gyros off, I could actually turn them on override. So that way the ship doesn't rotate. But that might not be a good idea if it decides to fall. I'm not really sure on that. We can do some testing for that, but that should be fine. So I think we're good now. Should be able to come up here and go to the hinges, and we'll manually reverse these. Yep, that works. We'll test the docking, which that works. Okay. I should be pretty much charged up, at least as far as it needs to be. So we'll alpha here. We'll make a manual save on that. We're also going to hop out, and we're going to be sure to grab a blueprint, which is Control B, and we're going to delete not this one, but the other Arcadia class. So this was the most recent. So this is the one I want to get rid of. Yeah, this is the one I want to get rid of. So we'll delete that. And we'll keep this blueprint. We got an unknown signal, so we'll grab that, and then we'll head to the moon. My inventory is full. I probably should have fixed that before flying out here. Because there might be something I want that I won't be able to carry. I'll just have to make a decision, I guess. What do we got here? go ahead and dampen to this. Don't think this one's gonna fly away from me though. Nah, it's not actually. That's pretty interesting. I didn't mean to bump it though. Let's grab this. What did we get? We got a cowl grinder. Okay, so it's just giving me all the cowl sit stuff right now. I don't really need any of that, so I guess that'll be fine. I've got a battery. So that's interesting how some of these will run from you and some of them will not, but they're set up to be able to. It's pretty interesting. But actually, you should be able to, in a survival game, use these unknown signals to build a ship if you can get up to them, grab them, and like take control of them somehow. I guess you would need to have the materials to make a flight seat of some sort and be able to build that on there, but it's pretty interesting. We'll go ahead and just do that. Get flying away from there. We'll dump all of our materials off. I need to dock the frigate, or is the frigate already docked? It is already docked. Let me check. How much hydrogen do I have? I'm solid on that. Okay. So I don't need to worry about that for a while. Put everything away. Grab only what I need for this. Clear my hotbar. Grab the binos, I guess. We'll go up to the Arcadia. And we're going to fly off to the moon. And we're going to give this new set of event controllers a test. I can get that action relay off here because I don't need that. We'll keep them because it might be a neat component to the design feature. I haven't actually looked to see where they're located, but I get a feeling they're probably used for decoration as well as functionality. I just don't know where exactly they're placed. Okay, so far nothing is activated by mistake when I hop out, and I'm just drifting in space. And I shouldn't have to worry about, like, if I'm close to the ground and hop out, it should still stay hovering because the thrust wouldn't be at 0 in atmosphere, as long as it's not, like, actually landed. So there shouldn't be any issue with that, but that's why we're testing it. We're going to make sure of that. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how far away the atmosphere of the moon is from the base, so we can test that as well while we're here. I'll just keep an eye on the P gravity, and then as soon as I see that update, I'll take a look at the distance from the base and just make a mental note of that, I guess. Could also do a GPS marker, but I don't want to clog up my screen with markers. And my antenna should only turn off when I'm actually docked to something, which is exactly what I want to happen. Now we're going to go ahead and turn the dampeners on, and we're going to adjust. I want to be in the sunlight for this test. Still watching the P gravity down there at the bottom. Should jump to like 0.02, I think, as soon as we get to the edge of the gravity field. 0.02 or 0.05, something like that. I know it's 0.05 for the Earth-like planet, but I'm not sure what it is for me. It's probably a bit lower. Signal beacon. That's for the station, which I don't think those have changed. Or at least that one shouldn't, because I'm pretty sure that's hard set now. Okay, 0.05, and we're at about 23 kilometers out is where that should turn on. I should go ahead and turn on my dampener so we start slowing down here. I'm going to land in this ice-filled crater. I'm going to turn and burn a little bit here so we start slowing down a little faster. And once we get below 20 meters from the surface, you should see the landing gear come down. I might need to adjust that because I'm not sure if the height is dependent on like your actual height from the surface or if it's the height from what's deemed to be the water level for that planet. So things like mountains and stuff could change that. It seems like it's just the actual surface itself, but 40, 30. And once we get below 20, our landing gear comes down. That's perfect. And if we go back up, it comes back up. Okay. So I want to come down. And then for this test now, I'll get it fairly close to the ground, but I won't turn my dampeners off. And okay, everything turned off. So it shouldn't do that. Everything turned back on again. So I guess it's because the gravity's so low here. Let's check thrust. Thruster down. Usage. Current usage. So it's not telling me that it's at 0. Let's take a look at the ECs. So, vent controller dampeners. Oh, I know why. We need to do AND gate on this. Now let's test it. No? Interesting. So the pilot is circumventing the thrust, or the dampener, you see. It's pilot in seat. That should be turned off right now. dampeners should be turned on, and the action, if that's true, should be to turn that on. And if it's false, it should turn that back off, I think. Let's try that. Pilot and seat toggle block off. So that way, pop out stays on, doesn't drop. That's good. Okay, and then if I turn off my dampeners and land, and then hop out. No. Let's check EC, pilot and seat. That block is still off. So dampeners. Equal to or less than. When that's true, that should be turning on pilot. But it's not. Let's go ahead and hide that. Square piston should block a terminal off. We can hide that one. We can hide that. These. I don't need those currently. The antenna I don't need. Block a terminal off. That I don't need in my terminal. These two I don't need in the terminal. Mayday I can turn off from the terminal. Navcam can go off. Dock Connect EC is fine. Dock AI is fine. Combat AI is fine. H202 generator, I don't really need that at all. Okay. So why is it still producing thrust? Because that's got to be what's happening, right? So what happens if I turn this on, and then I go and look for the dampener EC? So it looks like 0.09. Industrial hydrogen thruster, 13, so that's at 19%. So we can do 5%, should be more than enough for that. Now let's turn that off. And K, check the pilot seat. Okay, so this is now on, so now when I hop out it turns off. Okay. So yeah, everything's working according to plan now. What do we got here? That's interesting. That's the same combat grid that we fought earlier, I think. That one's pretty cool. Turn my lights off, and we'll grab a another blueprint. Now that got that sorted, so Control B. We'll get rid of this Arcadia class junk shit. Take that one. So now when I hop in, should turn everything back on. I come up, and it should close the landing gear. And now if I check the ECs, the dampeners are off. Why am I falling? Oh, I had the dampeners off, that's why. Okay. ECs. So the dampener EC is off, pilot EC is off, the altitude EC is off. So if I hop out, nothing should happen, which it doesn't. If I come back in to landing gear range, And I hop out, nothing happens. If I get close enough to the ground to land, but not quite there, nothing happens. If I turn my dampeners off, let it land, and hop out, it turns off. Then I hop in, I fly up, turn my dampeners back on, get out of the landing range. Okay, so that all works. One thing I want to test, which I can do with this little mound here, is if I get closer to the surface here. You know what, actually, we can just continue forward a little bit more and see what the actual determination for altitude is. So 30, 27, 24, 23. So yeah, it seems it's based on the like height of the it's not really equator. That's not what I. It's not the word for it. Height from the shit. I forgot. There's a specific word for it, but I don't remember it. But it's for like the height of the water level. So I won't be able to land on mountains with that unless I change the activation for it. Which that should be fine to do, because all the altitude does is just turn on the next event controller and set up the landing gear. And I don't particularly mind having the landing gear on, like just for regular flight, as long as I'm relatively close to the ground. But yeah, this works perfect for right here. I don't want to be in that hole, so we'll move over a little bit. Touch down, turn off my dampeners, hop out, and that should turn everything off, which it does. And we got another new unknown signal here. Didn't get anything out of that. Let's kick it over. Got some interior plates on that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Everything works, which is even cooler. Landing gear functions properly now. So now what I want to do is I want to check out this. I think it's right click to read it. Yeah. Heard some rumors about an expedition take in space, pushing the frontier. I bet there's money to be made. Okay. So that's interesting. There. That was off of the dead guy on the ship up there, but everything's back on. We can turn the dampers back on. Should be able to hop out after it stays. So yep, everything's functioning as intended. We get away. Landing gear comes up. And we're off. And once we get to about 23 kilometers from the base is when we should leave the atmosphere. Okay, we've already left the atmosphere, so I guess it kind of depends on which edge you're flying from there. But I would definitely call that a success. So we got auto docking and auto landing completely figured out for this. The altitude, I'll change that to be, let's say 70. Just so that way it should work with majority of hills and mountains on the moon anyway. Should be able to just hide these out of the terminal. Cockpit, it's not going to matter if I hide it or not, it's still going to show. It'll just be grayed out. So I'll just leave that like is. We'll drift back to the base, stock up, probably mine a bit of ice with the Doug. Just so that we get some more hydrogen production going. Then we'll start working on the ship we procured. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very happy with how this ship turned out, and also very proud of what I did with the landing on planets. I'm glad that worked out with minimal issue. Most of the time when I try to do something more complicated like that, there's a bit of extra issue, mainly with poor foresight on my part, but that one worked out pretty well. I might even save this recording and cut that section and upload that as a separate video on its own, just in addition to this one, so that way people can find that a little bit easier if they want to do something similar with their own ships. You know, simple tasks like, well, not simple, but complicated automation of simple tasks like landing on a planet is, doing things like that really makes me glad that I took those courses in PLC logic and automation in college. I'm pretty glad I took those now. I mean, doing logic-based programming was always relatively easy for me to understand, at least compared to some other people. But the courses I took at the college was definitely helpful. For anyone who wants to know, I have a associate's degree in mechatronics engineering technology, which is kind of a complicated way of saying like basic industry standard PLC logics programming. I worked with programming Festo robotic arms, did some industrial wiring courses, basics of machining and fabricating parts, stuff like that. You'll probably, if you look on my channel, you should still be able to find it's 3 videos of my capstone project for college. I turned a Nerf gun into an automated turret. I procrastinated pretty much until the last 2 weeks of that class, and threw that together in about 2 weeks, and it was good enough to impress the instructor. Unfortunately, he's since passed, but at the time, the instructor was actually really impressed with it and gave me a 100, even though I barely put any work in. What was it called? It was like the the Clipchamp 2, I think, is the module I used for the vision for that system, and it basically came preset for controlling servos to track color, and I just kind of abused that alongside a Arduino to pull code information off for when the object was relatively centered, and I just used the true-false statement for if the object was within the center to send a signal to a solid-state relay to turn on the power to the electric motor for the Nerf gun. And in that system, the Clipchamp took all the effort of driving the servos to aim it, and yes, I did use servos for the azimuth and what's the other? I can't remember the term for the other, but the horizontal and vertical movement, that was all done with 2 servos, which is why you'll see it jiggle a lot. I should have used stepper motors, but that would have been an extra day of the line and more coding to do, and I'm very lazy. So I didn't bother with that and just went with the servos because it was fully supported off of that. I don't know if that has weapons on it or not. I'm gonna go check that out.